Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online video with me, Sherman. Today we're going to be talking about gear set farming and the best ways to do it and the easiest ways to do it. Especially with Clockwork City coming out right around the corner, we're going to have retrading with that, so gear set farming will become a lot easier when that gets here. So what's the best way to start farming gear? Well, first I would suggest using the link in the description below to go to the wiki and find out what gear drops where and in what zones, what dungeons, and find the gear set that you want to start with, and then the gear sets you want to start with, because you can run two 5-piece sets in the beginning, or you can run two 5-piece sets in a monster set later on. But there is a problem when you do that, because when you run two 5-piece sets in a monster set, you give up the benefits of one of your 5-piece sets when you switch bars, because a lot of times you're going to use dual wield on one bar and sword and a bow on the other, or a staff on the other. So you do give up one of those 5-piece bonuses when you're on the other bar. So it can be good and bad at the same time. Another thing that you can do is that, like playing a tank like myself, I run dual wield on one bar and I run sword and board on the other. Now the reason I did this was because when I run dual wield, it gives me a good option of doing extra damage with the dual wield, and the fact that I'm running two 5-piece sets and a monster set gives me a little bit greater survivability, that kind of thing. But when you're playing DPS, you do not want to run dual wield on one bar and like sword and board on the other, because you're not designed to tank. So it's better to be a tank to run something like that, where you get guaranteed two 5-piece sets and a monster set. Now another thing you can do is you can run a 3-piece jewelry, a monster set, and a 5-piece set, and that becomes equivalent to running two 5-piece sets, because the monster set and the 3-piece jewelry is very similar to running a 5-piece set, because it gives you the same bonuses either way you go on some things versus other things. So that is an option, and when you do that, it also gives you the option of using things like Maelstrom Arena weapons or Asylum weapons, which are coming with the next DLC, and then of course the master weapons that drop in Dragonstar Arena. So you have a lot of variety there when it comes to the way you put together your gear. But when it comes to farming sets, that's where a lot of people get confused, because specific pieces drop from specific bosses in Overland areas. So when you're playing in the normal world like this, certain pieces drop from specific world bosses, delves, and the dolmens. So dolmens always drop jewelry, world bosses always drop chests and legs, delves drop boots and belts, and public dungeons drop shoulders and helms. Now world bosses and public dungeons can also drop weapons, and that's for Overland set items. Now the mobs in that map, in that specific map where that set drops, also have a chance of dropping an item piece from a set, but it's very, very rare. It doesn't happen all the time. It's very rare. It's a lot harder to farm sets that way than it is to farm the world bosses, or to farm the delves, or the public dungeons, or dolmens. Now I get asked all the time, what's the fastest way to farm a full set? Well, if you're looking for a full set in jewelry, your best option is to go with the boots and belts from the set, or to go for a pair of boots and a weapon from the set, or the belt and a weapon from the set. The reason why is because it's easier to farm that out than it is anything else in the game, because farming a delve boss is easy. It's just a matter of camping it. So you just sit there and wait. When it spawns, you kill it. Wait for it to respawn, kill it. Wait for it to respawn, kill it. Now, in a place like Bancorai, where a certain set named Spriggan drops, it can be really hard to farm these sets, because it's a highly farmed set already. Spriggan's is. So you have a lot of people in this zone, usually all the time, farming out those sets. So it can be really hard to farm certain sets because of their popularity. Another tool that I use is TTC. Now, I use TTC to find specific sets that drop from Overland to buy, because sometimes it's easier to buy it than it is to farm it. And even farming out a few 100,000 gold is not a big deal as it is to farming out that item where it could take you weeks or even months to farm it out in a specific trait. That's why a lot of us are really happy about the Clockwork City coming, because it's going to allow us to retrait items. Now, another thing that you can do is craft items, but only specific sets are craftable, and none of the drop sets in the game at all are craftable. So there's crafted sets too, and each zone has specific crafting areas for specific sets. So just remember that when you go to craft a set. Also, you have to know the trait in order to craft it in that specific trait. Now, the same thing's going to be with Clockwork City. You're going to have to know the trait to retrait it into that. And with that also comes a component you need. And that component only comes from dungeons on vet mode. Now, before we go into vet mode farming, we're going to talk about normal dungeon farming and how to get gear from normal dungeons. So, don't be afraid to wear blue gear, especially in your jewelry, if you're wearing a jewelry set. Because the jewelry set's going to be only a little bit weaker than purple jewelry, so it's not going to hurt you too bad. So you can still wear it even through trials. You can wear blue jewelry in normal mode trials, but in vet mode trials, you're going to want to run purple jewelry, most definitely. And if you can, eventually upgrade it to gold. So when you're farming dungeons, when it comes to farming dungeons, you want to find the dungeon you want to run and go to it. Like this one, Bless Crucible. I can travel to these dungeons. Once I find them, I can travel to them at any time. But I would not suggest doing that until you have a group or something. The other tool that you can use is the group finder, which is this. You can go in here and you can pick to use specific dungeons. And when you pick those specific dungeons, on the bottom is the normal, at the top is the vet. And when you pick a vet dungeon that you want to farm, or a normal dungeon you want to farm, it'll put you in a queue, and it should find you a group of people. Now, to farm dungeons the best, the easiest way, is by undaunted pledges. Find out every day what dungeons are available for the pledges. If there's a specific set you're looking for, like one that drops from bandaged cells, like the Sanctuary set, you can wait for the day that this dungeon is available to run it, because it's going to be easier to find groups on those days to run these dungeons back to back to back, unless you have a guild that is willing to work with you to farm these dungeons to get you the gear you need to become a better player and to have the better gear. But I find it easiest to just wait for those days, queue, and run those dungeons as much as I can until I get a set in what I'm looking for. Now, most of the time I don't run on normal anymore, because I've become so accustomed with the game and comfortable with the game that I actually just run it on vet mode, and I go for the sets that I want in vet, because I can get also the monster sets. And running a dungeon on vet is not as dangerous as people make it out. You only need blue quality gear to run vet dungeons, and only the base dungeons. Anything like Cradle of Shadows, Bloodroot Forge, Falkreath Hold, Imperial City Prison, Ruins of Mazatoon, White Gold Tower, I would not advise wearing blue jewelry or blue gear through them unless you are really, really good at playing your character and you know your character's setup. And then you can run those on vet mode, even in blue gear. But become comfortable with them first, so I would suggest running these ones on normal. Get the gear you want from them in normal, and then run them on vet to get you the jewelry, if you're looking for specific jewelry for it. If you're looking for a monster set, same thing. Monster sets do only drop in vet and hard mode, and same with when you run the daily pledges for keys. They only drop in vet mode, or they drop in normal and vet mode. In hard mode, though, you do get 2 keys from the bosses from completing it. So that's why a lot of people run most dungeons on vet mode, is to get the dual keys at the end. So running and farming sets is pretty easy. Now, also remember, there is some sets that drop from specific bosses. There is specific named items that drop from specific bosses and can be easier to farm than any of the other set pieces you're looking for, because they have a greater chance of dropping that one piece than they do anything else. So there is some world bosses, there is some delve bosses, some public dungeon bosses, some dungeon bosses, and then, of course, there is that drops specific named items for those sets. So use the wiki, find the sets you're looking for, like I said, farm them out, get what you want, get it in blue, get it in purple, doesn't matter, and just get the gear in that quality. But here's the thing you should always do when it comes to upgrading your gear. Upgrade only your weapons to gold. Don't worry about your gear right away, because you might change your mind on your gear sets later on. And so if you change your mind later on, it's easier to change an item set to purple, from purple to purple, than it is to go from gold to purple, because it costs a lot to upgrade gear to gold, unless you get it dropped in gold. And the only place that drops gold items is trials. Now, we don't have a trial finder, but trials is one thing that can be really hard to farm, because it requires 12 people. So unless you're in a guild that does trials, it can be a lot easier. Sometimes it can be really challenging, because some trial guilds have what's called their cliques, and they have specific people they run with all the time. Even though they say that they're open to all people, they do that because they want to get different clique groups going running those trials, and if any of those groups don't have what they're looking for, somebody can fill in from one of those other clique groups. But usually that's few and far between, in my experience. But farming trials, always farm them on normal first to get the gear sets you want specifically from them, even if it's the jewelry. Then run them on vet mode to get the better quality stuff. And once you have your gear set up the way you want it, whether it be trial gear or dungeon gear or whatever, then worry about making it all gold. And once you make it all gold, you don't have to worry about it again, because your gear will never have to be changed whatsoever. If it works as good as it does, your setup works as good as it does, you won't have to ever change it, because there's no reason to. Now, you might need to change the traits on your weapons, or you might need to change your skills around, but other than that, you should never have to change your gear out in the game once you get the setups you want, because the game's designed to allow that kind of play. And that's it. That's dungeon farming, or set farming in dungeons, Overland, and trials. Always start with blue and build your way up. Even if it's from Dolmen, if you get the jewelry, a couple pieces in blue and a couple pieces in purple, then be happy that you have that, because that's going to work best for you for now until you can get it in better quality. Now, there is a merchant in Cyrodiil that shows up on the weekends, and every weekend they get a new type of jewelry that they sell in gold. So you can go to these Cyrodiil merchants and buy them in gold, and it's either going to cost you gold itself or what they call AP. And AP is pretty easy to farm. If you don't mind doing PvP, AP can be really easy to farm, doing like the daily quests there, or doing different things like that. You can run those daily quests in Cyrodiil back to back to back, earn a lot of AP, go buy your jewelry in gold, but you don't really need it in gold if you don't want it. Purple is fine, and it'll work great for you all the way up through in-game, all that stuff. So, like I said, it's pretty easy, guys. It's not challenging, it's not difficult, it's just a matter of time. And sometimes it can be very time consuming. That's why I always suggest, when you're farming sets, farm it with your friends or with your guildmates. Because when you're farming with them, it's easier to get the sets you're looking for, because they're more willing to trade those sets over to you in specific traits than pug groups are. So, because sometimes when you join a pug, there's somebody in there looking for the same gear you are. So it's always better to kind of try and find a group of friends to play with, and have them help you farm out these sets. And when you're done farming out your set, help them farm out their sets. Because having a good bond with friends in a game like this is going to be way better than anything else. Because then you've got those friends for a long time, and you'll be able to run them through things all the time, and they'll run through things with you all the time. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I know it was kind of like not really detailed. I didn't explain a lot of like where each gear set drops and all that kind of stuff, but that's why I put the link in the description, was so you guys had a way to look at what gear drops where and go, oh, okay. You can also use the wiki to find Mundus Stone locations, crafting locations, and pretty much everything. So it's all right there. But that's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can hit that subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy will see you all later. Bye.